Good evening. I'm Joe Visconti, and I'm sitting in for Mark Schaftlein today. Glad to be here and glad to have about 20 minutes of a sermon I'm going to put out today. I've been really thinking about the program and America and democracy and how did this country get so divided at every level and so many different people in the world. In America, how can we be broken into just basically two groups? Whether it's Democrat or Republican or you call it whatever, it's a divisive, divided country. And it's been that way since Bush Gore in the year 2000. And it's gotten deeper and deeper and more entrenched, and people dig their heels into the issues or into their party label. And it seems as though we're just on a road to destruction. People can't speak with their neighbors. People are afraid to talk to their children, can't bring subjects up at dinner table or holidays. And we thought it was COVID. We thought it was Trump. It's been going on much, much longer than that. And the ideologies are so strong that they're just polarizing. I mean, I'm closer to friends of mine than I am to family members. You can't even speak to them, and you don't want to. You say to yourself, but I love them. But why is this so important to me? Because the issues have become so, in my opinion, they have become so inhumane. I'm going to just say it on the left, things that were put out by the left appear to be helpful and good and full of all types of rights and equality, but they're masked and they're basically evil. There are things that are not helpful. And so there are people that see through that helpfulness. And then on the right, you have people that are looking to just get away with government, get away with regulations, completely leave me alone. And that doesn't work either. You have to have regulations. I'm a builder. You've got to have a building code. The house will fall down. So you definitely need government. You need regulation. But then it gets so insane. The regulations are so bureaucratic, mountains and mountains and mountains of bureaucracy that you're stifled. You're not free anymore because you're a slave to reporting. You're a slave to everything that made free enterprise and the American spirit depressed. So on either side of the aisle, we see the public not want to address each other. If I talk to some Democrats, some lefties, and I'm a right winger, they don't want to come to the table to even hear what I just said, or maybe you just said. And if you're on the left-hand side and you're like, but Joe, the people in the cities or the people here and there and the poor, and how do you justify the border? Just as an issues with humanity. Those countries are being given hundreds of millions of dollars. They're letting the people flood. It's all happening. Now we see Manhattan in New York, complete, really blue city and blue state, want to basically build a wall. Get them out. We're dying over here. What does it take for people to wake up? So if you take a look at, I hate to say it, but if you take a look at what used to be called the center, the middle ground of common sense Americans, everything we all agree on, when we drive down the road and we get on the on-ramp and we yield and we stop at a red light, all that stuff that makes us human beings that want to operate in a society, there really isn't that much. We're being torn apart by ideology. We're being torn apart by, I will just say, bleeding heart people that are looking um, to do good rather than do it on their own. They're looking for government to do it. And we see this come actually from the collapse of religion and churches in this country, especially the Catholic Church. When I was a young boy, if people needed a job, they would go to the church, they'd get food, they'd get assistance, they'd get help, and they would go to church. And it's way before I was born in the 50s, it was happening in America and in the world. Little by little, as morality changed, the churches were much more stern. People wanted to have more of a freedom, especially a sexual freedom. And the church was no longer a place they wanted to go. And we see the government step in. And the government then provided, starting in the 60s especially, more government assistance, more government. And there was no reporting to the priest or the pastor or minister about what your daily life was morally. So you could go get the things you needed from government without having to get judged spiritually, morally. And so this is really what made government make a big move into every aspect of our life. The not-for-profit, the charities, the things that were always, the religious institutions always there to help people come through aren't there. Government is there. And yet we see the homelessness, the poverty, the mental illness, the drug addiction more and more and more everywhere where government can't heal it. Government can't take care of it. And why would that be? And that's why I call this a public sermon today, because there is a spiritual element to mankind. There is, whether we agree on how we worship or what type of a name of God there is, or spiritual realm, and if we have a soul, there are things that are much more than just our flesh and our hair and our blood and our bones. We're more than just a physical being. We all know that. But as we lost religion, and as religions lost us, and mankind was looking for more of a their own path to find God or find Jesus or Muhammad or Jehovah, whatever your religion, people more and more wanted to work in the secular world where the left brain and logical thinking and technology and all that, and they could still be good people, but they didn't need religion. They didn't need any spiritual sustenance. It didn't matter. Well, folks, it matters. And that's what's wrong with America today. We are in a spiritual war, a spiritual battle, because we thought we could just forget God in general, no matter what the religion, and that we didn't need God. We didn't need the spiritual aspect of ourselves being fed by the spiritual world, that we turned to secularism and government to solve all of our problems, or money and power, or grants or loans, or businesses and all that. But there are things for many people that's not enough. It's a spiritual thing. And it moves into the medical, it moves into psychology, it moves into so many different things with the soul, the psyche, soul, psyche, psychology, all those words, and we have forgotten it. And now we're in a time when no one really wants to have anything over us with medical. You can see with the shots and all that, or psychiatry. They're letting prisoners and insane people out on the street. So more and more people do not want anything forced. Of course not. We don't want, nobody wants that, especially Americans. But how do we find God again? Because we're not going to make America great. We're not going to make America great again. We're not going to make America greater. We're not going to make America anything if we really all don't realize that we're human beings and it's only love. It's an old cliche from the Beatles, all we need is love. But it's true. It really is true. Because what happens is when we forget love, when we forget we're speaking and arguing with human beings, we reduce people into a soundbite, into a just a physical thing, like a material, and we forget their humanity. And when we're arguing, we're frustrated, we're trying to convince other people of different things we believe in, we overstep our grounds and what we believed in. And this is a problem for us in our time in America, especially. What do we do? How do we find God again? How do we find God in freedom? How do we find what's good, what's helpful? How do we find it? Because we have to find it. This is the only help and cure for America. I believe it's not going to be a political solution that brings us back, not necessarily together and not necessarily to what we were once as a country, but back to brotherhood, back to real freedom without forced mandates and forcing you to love your brother and mandating it where you just want to. It's individual, it's person by person. It isn't party line. It isn't state versus state. It isn't black versus white. It isn't male versus female. It's none of those. It really isn't. And we've all heard this, what I'm saying before, but we are now at a tipping point where do we go from here if we don't realize, wait a second, stop. Let's stop. Remember the old thing, stop the insanity? The weight loss program, stop the insanity. Stop participating in anything where you realize that what you believe, you're going to get frustrated and angry. That doesn't mean we can't be involved in politics. We're not involved with the issues and our stance on them, but we have to remove the animus. We have to remove the anger to try to convince others. They have the right, everybody, to believe what they want. And it just so happens that more and more people, the less they think, the more they go with a party line. And if they really sat down and were forced with a gun to their head to listen, they would listen and go, oh my God, yeah, left or right of the aisle, we would all get it. But we all refuse to listen. We don't want to hear common sense. It's the Hatfields versus the McCoys. And it's like a blood a war that's going on, a blood vendetta. And that's what's happening in America. It's a blood vendetta, and it's being built up and built up collectively. The more and more people stand their ground and dig their heels in on what they believe, no matter what, You know, I'm a Republican. I'd follow Trump, but I'll beat him up every step of the way if I think he's doing something wrong. And I have. I don't care. And Democrats need to do the same thing. You don't have to swallow the whole thing and go with it. Stay home and don't vote if you think things are way out of hand. And right now, the Democrat Party is completely lost. In fact, it's looking to take over. You can see New York with the illegal immigration. They're looking to take over the platform that Trump created because it works. It's not because of Trump. He's a great distraction, but it's not because of him. It's because it works. And this is one of our problems. We want to shoot the messenger. With him, politically shoot the messenger. I can see why people don't like it. It's abrasive. But from my point of view, where we were and where we're headed, if we don't have that abrasiveness, I can't see someone like Ron DeSantis who's trying to be tough, or anybody who wants to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Compassionate and easygoing like Romney was. You're going to get run over. You can't, you have to have an abrasiveness, yet it doesn't work unless each person realizes that it's up to them to say, hey, what are the basic things that we need the government to do? Because right now the government is looking to intervene, because every aspect of our lives that the government as a machine, as its own entity, as its own corporation growing on, it is looking to get into every aspect of our life. And the people from the administrative state are looking more and more tax-based. The more they're inside all aspects of our life and all aspects of the economy, the more they can regulate, the more they can tax, the more they have power, and they can entrench themselves. It's getting to the point where now it can't work. Our debt is too high. So at some point, it's like the sand. When you build a sandcastle, it comes down and it flattens. At some point, there has to be a correction, because there's no way that this type of a debt will ever be paid back. And the servicing of the money we're borrowing is much, much, much too high for us to be able to exist. It can't go on. And now normally there's world wars and everything gets washed. But in this case, a world war would wash everything. We would be in a nuclear war, and that would be the end of the world. So we're now at that point where we can't really go to war with nuclear states, and we can't correct our spending and the way that our government runs. And we look at political figures, just about all of them will be either blackmailed, extorted, threatened, sued, indicted. I mean, this is just the beginning. People think it may be just Trump. This is the machine. This. I know people say, well, it's the deep state, it's this and that. No, basically, I've been elected before. And when you walk in to your town hall, your state capitol, there's something with the lawyers and the contracts and all. It's a machine that's going on its own. It doesn't basically need anybody. Accounts receivable, balance payable, tax in, tax out, letters this. It is an operational machine. You try to get into the machine itself, whether it's local, state, or federal, and you try to change anything in there, forget an act of Congress. It can't be done. It's like Atlas holding up the world. You just cannot get one thing done because everything is so legal and entrenched. And then at the time of rights, everybody is upset if one thing isn't followed or one group is not administered to. There's no room for anybody to make a spontaneous or a quick decision, as Trump is trying to do and was doing, to change and lighten up government. It's not going to happen. It's almost like that self-leveling floor things. If you're put self-leveling cement, it finds a way to self-level, and it's just going to always try to go back to what it was. The government is not going to want to respond. And the people in the administrative state, because this is really what our problem is, those that are permanent in government and that don't leave, they're not elected and they're not lower tier. They're in the upper echelons of all government. And then you have the entrenched unions, you have the entrenched corporations. They're all in there with their PACs and their groups, and they're all in there with the lobbyists with their fingers in there. So the machine is going on, it's being pressured and pressured more and more. Who could stand against this, and where are we going? That's the reality. The party system are the people like this pulling, and it's not doing any good with all the animus and anger because the machine is still going. Republicans aren't going to shut government down next week. It needs to be shut down. If somebody needs to say, stop it. And the military needs to be shut down. Yeah, people all over, no, shut it down. Stop sending money to Ukraine. Stop it. Our military can go on. It's fantastic. It can go on without everybody being paid. Lower it down, let us sign, let it be known that this country, because we're the ones threatening the world isn't threatening us, contrary to public belief system in this country. We're the ones with Star Wars in outer space, submarines, nuclear everywhere, nuclear aircraft carriers, not like China with diesel. We've got everything. Okay. And so the great lie is that we have to keep it going and modernize it and put 2 trillion to 2.4 trillion a year, which is never auditable, into the military. Shut it down. Shut the government down. That's what needs to happen. Stop it. Stop the insanity. But Republicans won't. At the end of the day, it won't get shut down. And so you'll see that machine I was speaking about over, it's just going to go and it's going to go. And when we're gone, I'm 66 years old. When we're all out of the picture, a new crop of people will come up and do what I'm doing and others and Mark are doing. And we'll all try to get out there and say, well, and it'll be another fable and another story. The names will change, the issues will change, but all in all, it will be borrowing and spending, and the military wants new toys, and the neocons, which are the Republicans, they want war. Democrats never wanted a war, but now they're all for war because it's a justified war. So everybody wants war. That's what's going on in America, and it's a problem. So when you get back to the party system and your personal animus and all that, you have to step back and say, what are the things we don't want? We don't want world war. Trump showed you don't have to have a world war. Putin never went into Ukraine. Kim Jong-un never launched it. Trump went over there. Historic went over there to North Korea. Whoever seen that? And they play it down and minimize it. There does not have to be world. That's why they wanted him gone so bad, because they want war. This is a warmongering nation. I'm sorry. Mark Schaftlein may not agree with me. It's a war. We're warmongers. We have taken over what the British did for 150 years, and we don't want to stop it. And I don't mean the people. And I don't necessarily mean people that are in the military, the machine behind the military, the industrial complex that Eisenhower warns about, that machine. And it's not just for profit. It is not just for profit. It's game playing and CIA and destroying nations, and the things that we have done as a country are unconscionable. They really are. And so shut the government down, but it won't be. We'll see next week that it won't be shut down. So there you have it. You have this uniparty. You have a machine government that is going to continue to expand, continue to grow. And when the people want more, they'll just bring more illegal aliens in to bring down the power of the paycheck. And then the little federal wage goes up a couple bucks, and the major corporations are cleaning up over and over. More power, more surveillance. Everyone's watching the phone everywhere you go. It hasn't begun what's happening in this country. So as we try to think about how can we find peace, we have to really focus, all of us, on, well, wait a second, what's going on? And why do we need Philadelphia lawyers if we want to stop an issue? Why do we have to go through lawsuits to get a change in government? Because nobody can do it. And then why do we see certain judges do this, another judge does that? People don't know where to turn. They don't know what to trust in government. So it's easier to stick with your party where you think if you won something. Because you're not going to get Republican or Democrat. If you win, I won this time, Trump won, and then that one won. That's all we get. We get to pretend our teams won. But the house, the stadium, the NFL franchise, or the Major League Baseball, it's all owned. They do it. They decide. And that's what's happening in the world. Our problem is they're pushing it more and more to some very severe things with Ukraine, and very severe things that are going to happen if we keep trying to push NATO. So as we, again, go back to our issues and our personal animus and our party systems, and how do we get together, we have to agree on a few things. Only a few things. We have to first agree that we are human beings and that we have spirits and souls, and there is a God, and he participates in life. That is huge. And today, so many people are agnostic. You don't have to practice religion. You just got to believe there's angels. You got to believe there's help, and that everything comes from government, and that everything comes from the almighty dollar. In your daily life, you've seen the miracles happen. There is a God. That's the number one thing. There is help. We are participating. This universe didn't get here by itself. Creation occurred. This is something so important. It's existential. And from there, then we can go, well, what do we agree on in society? We want things to be fair, equal justice under the law. We want to make sure everybody has what they need, and it's fair. Americans love fairness. This is what we need. God, equal justice under the law. No wars. Hippocratic oath for doctors. First, do no harm. First, do no harm in the world, in a nation, in your town. First, do no harm. And defining what harm is the real challenge, because today, so many issues are based on, well, could be helpful and good, but it's not. And so we have to take a look at all of our policies and see the things that don't work, that we keep throwing money at, all in the name of a good Samaritan and trying. We don't need to do that. We need to back up with money what works, streamline government, and get efficient, and be able to make our government more mobile. And that means that our elected leaders are running government, not a machine of bureaucrats, not a machine of lobbyists or corporate PACs. This is so important. And we have to agree on that. If we do, then we're at the table with a Democrat or Republican able to talk about a few things, and we can go into the micro issues. And really, you know what? With that basis of there is a God, we are human beings with a soul. We have a purpose. We're not an accident. Neither is our nation. And we are good people and we help. But at some point, we have to cut off the spigot of money to things that aren't working. Otherwise, we will be irresponsible, and irresponsibility will lead to catastrophe and the collapse of the nation. And in this case, the collapse of America will be the collapse of the whole planet. All nations will fall out of alignment. Anyway, that's my 21.13 second little sermon on the dining room table here for the Mark Schaftlein Report. Thank you so much for listening. God bless everyone. Let's go. Let's make America greater.